Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Selling Portage podcast. Colin, how are you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, buddy. Of course, that's my
Good.
usual answer, but I can't complain too much. As Preston would say, every day you wake up and put your feet on the ground is a great day. And ironically enough, that's our guest today. So I've buried the lead.
Are we going to use Prestonisms throughout our episode here?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if we should. No. Then he'll watch it back and he'll be all, no, Preston isn't easily offended. He'd find that funny too. But let's let him use his own.
Fair.
But he is very positive.
Yes, he is.
That. Yeah.
And we're happy to have him.
I've never seen somebody more enthusiastic about reading the building reports at council. And I love that because I'm on the planning board. So
That's right.
it comes out and, it's always a good news story. It's been a long time. And I'm getting off track already. But the planning district, there was a time, like in my storied council career that has spanned more than 14 years, that the city and the RM actually provided an operating grant to the planning district because there wasn't enough permits coming in to actually support their operation. And that has not happened in a long time. In fact, we had clawed back a little bit of money for some projects last year, but they do very well. And that is a testament to the development that's happening around Portage La Prairie.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that surprising, but I guess things ebb and flow. But I've always known the planning district to be very viable in my time on council, and I do sit on the Pred board with Preston, and I know with Pred and planning, they go hand in hand with each other.
Sorry, Colin. Duty called for 1 second there.
Are you texting during our podcast?
I am, and it's we are partially a real estate podcast. So when somebody asks for a last-minute showing, got to get back to them right away.
Got to get back to them. That's fair. And that's okay because I'm on TikTok. So just kidding.
Well, you're just scrolling TikTok?
No,
looking at all kinds of crazy things?
I have found TikTok to be very fascinating, and over the last couple days since the federal election was called. Oh yeah. So it's just, this is a public service announcement to everyone. You can't, regardless of your political stripe, you cannot always rely on TikTok to be truthful information.
You don't say. I need to do my own research. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I can't just rely on Berta Proud Dad to tell me how I should vote.
Oh, that guy.
I love that guy.
Yes, I've had to educate my wife to a point, and some of my children to not believe everything they hear on TikTok. So, however,
always call it fake news.
That's right. However, I have been doing so. I like to cook. I do not like to bake, but I have started following someone named Mama B. Shout out to Mama B on TikTok. And I would say in the last month, I have probably made 15, 16 of her recipes, and they have all been excellent, including my Hawaiian pineapple chicken and Mexican street corn pasta salad I made for dinner last night. So,
well, you must really enjoy cooking. I personally do not. I would rather have a chef in my house.
That's fair. Well, I think everyone would. Yeah. Not everything I touch turns to sold, though.
That's fair. That's fair. I do not have a chef, for the record.
No, so. Okay. Clarification.
Yeah. Now let's see. Okay, we have an answer, ladies and gentlemen. This is a yes.
Okay, I'll keep you all entertained while.
Please do.
Ryan ignores our podcast and our obligations as Portage's #1 podcast.
Hey, it only took me a second.
We're taking this worldwide.
Yeah, we are taking this worldwide. Everyone needs to know about Portage La Prairie.
That's
We
right.
had a city council meeting this week.
Yes, we did.
And what's the exciting news? We talked about the building report already, but
yeah. Well, last meeting we had approved a contract with MWM Environmental to do our new garbage contract for the next. Don't quote me on this. I believe it was 3 years, and this is the introduction of the rollout bins for our garbage collection. So, sorry, our solid waste collection.
Yep.
So that's exciting. Everyone will be getting bins that are covered under the contract, and we're going to automated garbage pickup.
Yeah, very exciting. They presented a video and everything to see how it works. You can just search it online, I'm sure, or on YouTube, and you'll find it. But
it was garbage day in our neighborhood yesterday, and every garbage day, it looks like a disaster down every street. So this will help clean that up for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Everyone will be given one giant bin. So if your garbage cans are at their life's end, don't worry about it. A solution is on the way.
I did get a text from my brother yesterday who just spent $58 on a new garbage can.
Well, now he's got a garbage can for some other purpose, whether it's a cottage or a campsite or something.
That's right. I told him to fill it with water and he can stay cool all summer long. Like Oscar the Grouch.
Wow. Helpful advice.
That's right.
All right, Colin, we should get on with the show and bring in our guest. And it's none other than Mr. Preston Meier. Well, I'll let him tell us about him.
Yes. Counselor, MC extraordinaire.
Yep.
And all the other good things.
Yep. So many things.
Preston Meier, counselor, MC extraordinaire, father, grandfather. How are you doing today?
Guys, it's a great day. Hey, listen, I'm just thrilled to be here. I mean, I love what you guys do. I've watched some of your previous podcasts. I see the connection that you guys have and the charisma and what you bring to the screen. And I'll tell you, I was pretty thrilled when you asked me to do this. And
awesome. Well, we are happy to have you here.
I'm here today. You betcha.
Our pleasure, sir. It's our pleasure.
So you are currently in one of your many desks, you said.
One of my many desks.
One of your many desks. That's good. I know you are always all over the place, much like the two of us. Our job is to drive around and visit people all day, right? And I think I wave to you upwards of 3-4 times a day sometimes. Now, absolutely. Whether you wave back, that depends on your mood, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think if I see, I generally throw something up at you. I'm not quite sure what it is, but sometimes it's a recognition, and sometimes it's a hey, get off my bumper. Those types of things.
That's right. Yeah. So, Preston, I'd like you to take us back to 1983 when Preston Meier was born.
Excellent.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, guys. And once again, thank you for allowing me to be here. As I say, I've watched your previous podcasts and see the quality and the uniqueness of the people that you've had on here has been really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to future ones. My story is not unique. I obviously raised in Portage, and I shouldn't say that. I actually was raised in the RM. I grew up on a street called Pine Crescent that many are familiar with, and just on the boundaries. So back in those days when I was a teen trying to get into town and hitchhiking, I would always kind of stand on that road. It doesn't look that far today, but when you're 14 or 15 years old and you're looking to get a ride, it can seem pretty far. But I spent my formative years, of course, going to Prince Charles School, which was a great experience, and even had an opportunity to be on student council in my teen years. So that was kind of a cool experience, and probably the first introduction to any type of politics. And to be candid with you, it's high school politics, but so it's a little bit different than obviously what we're doing today, but of course had actually no interest in going any further. I mean, when you're 14.
Can I ask what your role was on the student council?
Surprisingly enough, I was the Joe Massey of grade 9. I think
You're the
grade 9,
treasurer.
grade 8. I was the treasurer, yes,
Excellent.
for the 1 year at that point in time. So, so Joe has asked me a couple of hints and tips from back in those years, and I said the $17 that you raised at the canteen at the Hop Sock was
Fundamentals,
dedicated back towards something.
the fundamentals remain the same, Preston.
That's right.
You know, they really do. But back then, I mean, we dealt cash, so we made sure we were very had pretty clean records. We had a great teacher that, of course, mentored us, and you know, it kind of gave you kind of an insight into kind of how meetings work. But obviously, at 15 or 14 or however old I was at that time, you didn't think too much about you know.
Right.
So, but yeah, went there. Fortunately, made it through grade 9 and graduated to PCI. Spent my years there, and I know we've had the discussions before, guys. But after high school, I got to admit, I was like most kids that age that grew up in Portage. I really couldn't wait to get out of here. I don't say that in any negative sense. It's just I wanted to see the world, right? And we all had sometimes those same feelings about our hometowns. And yeah, so I left and tried to find my way and ended up coming back. But that was a number of years later. So
Now, I have actually quoted you on a previous podcast in saying that, you know, and because I 100% agree with you. I think that when students graduate high school or get into their early adulthood, it's important to see what else is out there. And you talk to many people, much like myself, who left after graduation. Why do we come back to Portage? Well, Portage is home, right? Portage offers a lot of different things that you can't find elsewhere, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
You're absolutely right, and I mean, I obviously heading out of town and never really moved back until about 14 years later, which I mean we can discuss briefly a little bit later. But I know when I talked with friends of mine that have maybe never left Portage, they just see it through a different lens. I was fortunate enough to be able to be in a number of communities, and I know Ryan and I share a little bit of Thunder Bay history. Not that I knew him there, but I lived there for a couple of years. A couple of my kids were born there. I lived everywhere from Nipawin, Saskatchewan to Dryden and Winnipeg, and actually spent about a year and a half out in Hamilton, Ontario. So I was fortunate enough to kind of see what I needed to see, I guess. And at that time, you know, I found a wife and had some kids and decided to work our way back to Portage for various reasons. But I got to see the world through a different lens, and it's pretty cool.
For sure.
What were you doing for the 14 years? Like just kind of bouncing town, community. It's quite a few of them. But
Yes.
Was it a career that took you around?
It was a career. Yeah, it was actually surprisingly enough direct sales at that time. And I mean, we don't have to get into it, but if we want to be real, I guess, real transparent, the deep, dark secrets, and it's not really a secret because I love doing it, but there's, you know how they talk about the top occupations in the country, most trusted occupations, right?
Yes.
And they talk about, of course, and I'm not going to defame anybody or anything, but they talk about firefighters and nurses and doctors and those types of things. Well, if anybody ever wants to go to the list of the 4 bottom, I've encompassed all 4 of those. But I really stress it was always be moral, honest, and ethical, you know, within those things. So from a stint in direct sales that took me, and that was the company I was with, and that took me everywhere from Nipawin, Saskatchewan, right through to Hamilton and various stops in between. And then just decided at that point in time, my wife and I decided we wanted to maybe come back home. Our family was young. We'd only had 2 kids at that point in time. They were 2 and 1, and we wanted to make a change. So we ended up coming back to Portage. That's where she's not from Portage, but that's where we met back in, I think we were like 16 or something at that time. But and decided to relocate here. Our 3rd son was born here, and yeah, and then life just carries on from there.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's interesting. I knew you had left for a stint there,
Yeah,
and I
about
didn't know
14.
you had gone to so many different places in that time. But so you've lived in Portage now for how many years consecutively?
We moved back here in 1993, or late 1992, early 1993. So and we've been here consistently ever since. So
Okay. And I know you are involved heavily with different community organizations. Do you care to touch on a few of those?
You know, and again, we know, obviously, I mean, even though we're talking a little bit about Preston, those organizations are not about Preston. And I think you guys, of course, and I know you guys quite well, sit on a number of organizations as well. And I don't mean to sound too altruistic, but what Portage means to us is a community where we wanted to be involved in. I didn't really have those types of feelings or connections when I first moved back. I had 3 kids. They started to get into the school system. We wanted to maybe be involved, and you know how things start to progress. And at that point in time, I had a friend of mine that our kids were the same age, and they sat on parent council at one of the local schools and said, "Hey, Preston, do you want to come and sit on parent council?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I mean, I like things. I like our education system. My kids are going here, so I might as well go in and check it out." Well, that was kind of the start or the impetus of it. And you know what it's like when you start to get involved in organizations and things just carry on and continue. So yeah, I sat on parent council for a while up until 2006. And I only say, and my kids had gone through those years as well. But then I decided at that point in time, I knew more about the school division and how to educate kids than teachers and professionals and administrators. So I figured I didn't like where our school system was going. They had talked about amalgamating the schools at that time. I didn't agree with that as a parent only in this position, and thought that I could come in and change the world and get it to the way that I believed it should be. And I ran for school board at that point in time. And fortunately enough, I was elected on to my first term back in 2006. And very quickly realized how smart the administrators, the teachers, all the officials, and so on were at that point in time. So just to, I mean, kind of answer your question a little bit, when you see the organization or a organization or any organization from the inside out, it's through a whole different lens. And yeah, and realize, you know, these people are doing the best they can with resources that they have. And I probably did about a 180-degree flip in trying to understand how things worked, specifically our governance model, no different than council and a lot of the other organizations that exist there. And yeah, and just worked my way through that. So that was a real learning experience. And I sat on there for the first term and decided I wasn't finished. And then actually we were claimed, if I remember right, for the second term, which sometimes silence is consent, or maybe you're doing a good job. I don't know, right? Or nobody else wants it. And then I decided I'd take one more term on, because then my kids would be finished school, and then I wouldn't really have that connection, and hopefully leave the organization that way. So I did run a third. I did get elected back onto that term and served 3 terms with the Portage Prairie School Division, which I got to admit is one of the best organizations around. I mean, you hear stories, but they really got it going. They know where it's at.
That's great.
How did you come to the decision? So what a lot of people probably don't realize is that after your 3 terms, you pretty much immediately ran for city council. What was the decision process that happened throughout that? Because I had sat on council while you were on the school board, and we had passed a few times. But what was the decision that, or what drove the decision to switch over to city council?
Sure. Now, I'll be candid in saying it really didn't have anything to do with the school division specifically. I didn't want to make a jump from that type of thing. We'd have to back the story up just a little bit. There's another number of other organizations I'd been involved in during that tenure. I mean, I was on the golf board, but I mean, that's recreational, right? So that was only part of it. But I also got involved in the Chamber of Commerce. And I think you guys have heard me talk about the Chamber. I really think it's our strongest connection to the business community. Really like what they did, really like what they stood for, really respected the people that were on there, the executive director, in addition to the leaders of that organization, and carried through there. And what it really did is, again, gave me an insight really into the business community, and said, you know what, I've got to be a part of this. I mean, I don't have the skin in the game. I didn't own a business. I didn't invest other than my own home and my time into the community. So that was all of those experiences combined. And I mean, we could go on for another couple hours, but really kind of said, you know what, I want to be a part of this. And I want to be a part of a group of people that we represent the citizens of Portage and of course connections with the RM, and just really kind of take this community to where it needs to be and be part of that decision-making process and get some input and put into it. So really, Ryan, that was my impetus for making the jump. Wasn't because I had aspirations. It wasn't because I wanted to go to the school board and then, to council and then to MLA and then to MP and then to premier and then to ruler of the free world. But
you have to lay out the map for yourself, I think.
No, I have no aspirations outside of Portage. But that was kind of all those things combined is really what made the decision to attempt to run. Unfortunately, I was fortunate enough to get elected back in 2018. Ryan, I sat with you around that table for 4 years, and I'll tell you, the information and the things that I learned were instrumental. Fortunately, I also had some good mentors from a lot of other organizations that talk about what governance is, right? And I think we could have a discussion just on governance for a couple hours, but knowing that what your job is to really kind of set the pace and create policies and procedures. And, like we know on council, they're calling, we're not there to fill the potholes, but we would if we needed to.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of where that went from there, Ryan.
Well, that's interesting about you on the golf board, because I had no idea you were into golf.
Okay, yeah, I know. I keep a couple of those secrets hidden.
Much the same, I was told you were a grandfather, which I had no idea because you never talk about it.
I know. You know what? I like to keep my personal life private, not share any of that stuff. But obviously, I'll sit and talk about golf, but I do got to talk about fatherhood first of all, because I loved my kids, obviously, and being involved in the sports and doing the things, whether it was soccer or baseball, or they weren't really much into hockey, but a little bit of curling, those types of things throughout those years. But I'm not sure if you guys knew, I had a granddaughter a year ago that she actually she turned a year old yesterday.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
And if you want, I do have about 6,312 pictures we could post along with this. But all I got to say is that, and Colin, I know you're going to be a grandfather, and you're going to absolutely love every second of it. Ryan, I'm not sure if you're there yet, but one day you will be
there yet.
And you'll get the conversations that Colin and I will certainly have. It changes everything. I never realized it. Friends of mine that I hang with, they've got grandkids. We talk grandkids stories, and yeah, I'm interested, and I'll look at some pictures and hear the stories. But until you have one of your own, you don't really get it. When she came, again, it changed our lives completely. We're so fortunate that our kids allow her to be in our lives, and we get to see her every couple of days. And I saw the things that she does that I wasn't able to be around when my kids were growing up.
Right.
And, you talk about the stories. Did I like my kids this much? Probably not. But I love my kids. Don't get me wrong. But just seeing through her eyes, and just she's to a point now with recognition, and she's just about walking, and you just see all that kind of stuff. So thanks for bringing that up, Colin. That is a pretty cool aspect of life, and it's just another phase that we go through.
For sure. And I often just find myself in a position where, I look at my youngest daughter, Kennedy, who you both know, and she's going to be 11 this year. And then I try to think back to the younger years, and a lot of that stuff is, well, you're working and she's at daycare and this, that, and the other thing, right? So I'm going to do it better this time with the grandkid.
It's not about doing it better. It's about just doing it, right?
Right.
We make mistakes. I'll make mistakes. Yeah, I'll make mistakes as a grandfather. I'll hopefully not, but I will. That's just the way life works, right? But you just see life through a different lens, and it really changes even some of your thinking in and around. Part of my rationale for hopefully being involved in the community is that I left. We had this conversation. I came back. I've had friends left. They've come back. I've had friends that have never left. I've had friends that have left have never come back, right? And when you decide to settle down, and not saying you ever have to, but when you decide to settle down and you want to come back to community, there's certain things you look for. And we looked at the usual things like your education and your recreation and your health. We're not getting any older, we're getting a lot older. We're not getting any younger, unfortunately. So you look for those things, and where do you want to raise your kids? And and everything else. And you know what? Portage was just the ideal place. I mean, there's 1,700 communities across the country like ours, right? Everybody thinks their community is special, and for obvious reasons. I mean, I think our community is special, but more importantly, I think it's unique. Part of it because of the growing up here, part of it because of the familiarity, the friends, the new people that you meet walking down the street. And it's just, when you pull up to a four-way stop sign, and Ryan, I'm sure you've had this a dozen times, you pull up to a four-way stop sign, and no, not going through the stop sign, Ryan, no, just pulling up and stopping.
Hitting it with my truck and moving on.
And the three people that are at the other three stop signs are all waving to you because you know them all.
Right.
You tell me where else without a history, right, that you can go into a community that happens. You walk down the most incredible pathway across right around the lake there, and a 10-minute walk takes you 2 hours because you got to stop and talk to everybody because you know them, you're familiar with them. So that really warms our heart. My wife is exactly the same way, and this is where we wanted to end up to be. So that's kind of where we're at now. And I'll tell you, even though I wanted to get out of here after grade 12, it would take a lot to ever have to get me out of here now. So,
well, it's interesting because it's always that idea that we need to somehow get the kids to stay here, but often that is not the correct approach.
No, and I am so, I mean, I've been vocal about that for a long time. It's not that I don't want our kids to be here. I do. But I want to make sure it's a community they want to come back to, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, when you grow up, and as I said, the friends that I have that I went to school with that maybe never left Portage for any length of time, just see the community through a whole different lens. Yeah. I look at it now and I see it through a lens of, and I do comparables to, I mean, places like Nipawin or Dryden, Kenora, Thunder Bay. And I mean, there's a lot of similarities when you talk about businesses, communities, and those types of things. But I see it so different now than when I was in grade 11 and just couldn't wait to get out of here. You know, so if we can create that community, they want to come back. It's like you always say, you give them all the tools, you give them everything that they need to survive in life, and you create what they need to leave, but then you create the environment for them to stay or for them to come back. And when they come back on their own choice. And now they get involved, Ryan, like you. I mean, they get involved like you. You left, you get involved in the organization you're involved in. I mean, the cornhole king of Portage Prairie, I'll tell you. But you made that decision to get involved. You may not have made that same decision had you never left and seen what the rest of the world is like.
No, that's just
Ryan,
it, right?
Yeah. And Ryan, I know the same way. So it's pretty cool to be part of this community, and especially having you guys around and being able to knock off ideas and conversations and work together. It's been pretty special. So
that's perfect. Well, we appreciate you sharing that for sure. Are we ready to get into?
I got one more before we get into the last three questions.
For sure.
Okay.
What's one thing that we don't know about Preston Meier that people would be surprised to find out?
Oh, wow. Like I say, I keep my private life pretty quiet. No, I do talk about golf. Let's see, we talk about our granddaughter. I mean, some things I used to figure skate for a little while. That sometimes comes as a surprise.
That is
I did not know that.
You know, I don't know if there really is any secrets. I mean, there's probably the odd skeleton or two hanging around that. But
we all have those. We all have those.
Yeah, I mean, figure skate wasn't long, but I still have a picture of me dressed up in my sailor suit when I think I was 10. And you know, my mom, unfortunately, she's passed away now, but always had no problem being able to bring those pictures out when she was. In fact, not that there's anything wrong with it at all. I was the third youngest, or the third of three boys. So I've got two older brothers. They don't live here anymore at the moment, but my oldest one is moving back. Perfect example.
Right.
And he's 65. And he's coming back to Portage now. My dad, of course, is still here, lives across the street from me, which is pretty cool, except sometimes it's a little bit too close. But 98% of the time, it's really, really good. So when you have those close, but my mom had no problem pulling up the picture of me in there. And because I was the third back in those years, they thought they maybe wanted a girl. I was maybe supposed to be that girl. So throughout the years, not that there's anything wrong with it. But I was about 3 years old where they actually have a picture of me in a dress sitting on the front step of the house. So
You know,
I think they just wanted to kind of keep it, what would it be like if we had a girl and how
Yeah.
then after a couple of bows in the hair, I think things stopped after that. And forward at that point. So yeah, I don't know if those are secrets, Ryan. I don't really have much else to say other than
Hey,
getting
I
into
never knew those things about you.
I did not know that.
And we know you quite well. So
Well, I'm waiting for the time when Ryan is going to interview Colin, and I get to hear all this stuff, and Colin's going to interview Ryan, and I get to hear all this stuff.
Not a bad idea.
yeah, we
Trust
go by
them.
the Vegas rule there. What comes out of my mouth stays stays out of the public eye.
Good point.
Okay,
Anyways, I
I've got-
apologize. I'm taking your time. You know me.
No,
I can sit
not at
here
all.
for hours, and I keep talking till everybody just leaves or turns off their computer. So,
I want to ask you, what is your favorite book you ever read?
hey, actually, I do have one of those, and I'll be candid. I do not read a lot of fiction. In fact, I don't think I've ever made it through. I think I did make it through a fiction book once that my wife wanted me to kind of read through it, but I would read a page and a half, fall asleep, and then next night I try to read it. Then I'd have to read half of the 1.5 pages. But actually, it's a book by Harvey Mackay called, and I wasn't even aware you were going to ask this question, called "Swim with the Sharks," and it was actually a pretty cool book. It talked a little bit about legal, moral, honest, ethical, how you do business in the real world, and it's not about hiding things and shiftiness and all the other things that go with it, right? So, and the 4 words that I took out of there that I use all the time and obviously try to live my life through the best I can is when you do something, make sure it's legal, moral, honest, and ethical. And, through that lens, I don't think you can go wrong, but make mistakes, of course. But really, really good book. If anybody has the opportunity to read it, and I get no royalties at all.
I take a list of these books because I've done a lot of interviews where we ask that question, even on other podcasts, and that I've never heard of that book, so I will check for sure.
Well, Harvey Mackay, Swim with the Sharks, and it's a really good book. I mean, it's about his business and so on, but when you get the message of what he did to succeed and everything else in that, it's actually pretty cool. So
That's perfect.
yeah.
What about your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. I didn't know you were going to ask that question either, but there's only one. And I think I probably watched it 100 times, and I'll probably watch it another 100 more times. But it's not that I'm a big Kevin Costner fan, but in this movie, he plays it really good, and it's a pretty cool story, and it's called Field of Dreams. And
That's a great movie.
I know, you know what? It still makes me kind of bring a tear to my eye when I watch it, but I know that people know that that's my favorite movie, and so I've got a couple of CDs. I think I've got a couple of beta VHSs on it. No.
Betamax.
It's an old movie, man, but I don't know if I could respond to lines word for word, but I've seen the movie a number of times, and to this day, it is still one of my favorite movies. So it's about choices we need to make. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my last question for you today, and I know you're going to have something on this one.
Okay.
Out of anybody we've interviewed, I know Preston Meier is going to have the
I'll tell you,
answer.
I'm really not up to the stature of your previous ones, but I really appreciate you here. So,
what is the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given?
oh, I actually do have one of those as well. And you know what? And I did not know these questions in advance. And as much as I try to live by it, I don't always succeed. Sometimes my emotions get away from me. But the thing that keeps popping into my head when I get into a stressful, tightful situation is just remember, those who succeed are the ones that keep their head about you when all others around you are losing theirs.
I like it.
So whether that's a bit of the salesman, I mean, I don't really consider myself a salesman as much as people think I'm a salesman, but keeping your head about you when all others are losing theirs, I think it just talks about the emotion and the calmness and taking any situation, de-escalating it and making it what it needs to be. So sometimes I'm the windshield and sometimes I'm the bug.
But who's the wiper?
But yeah, if you look through that lens, it can only help you in the future. So yeah, those are 3 great questions, and they were hard hitting journalism, Colin, but I really appreciated the opportunity to answer those. So
yes, well, thank you so much for coming. I don't know if you have any more questions for Preston today, Ryan?
That is it. Those are the closing questions. And
Or
Preston,
do you
we
have any
appreciate
questions
you.
for us?
You know what? I don't, guys. I just want to say I've watched a few of the podcasts. As I say, I've never made it to the end of one just yet. So I did not know what the questions were. But I really like what you guys are doing. I really like the concept of this. I think you guys got a great chemistry together and really keep it going. To me, it looks like that ESPN show. I won't go into that, but the only other thing I need from you is I need a T-shirt. So
Oh, yes, we'll have to get you one made.
definitely. Well, I'm talking the one Ryan's wearing.
Oh, yeah.
Plain black chocolate.
No, I'm kidding. I'd like a Selling Portage T-shirt. I really would. I think that would be the only thing that would complete my week and make me who I am even more.
They're only $138 on the Selling Portage podcast merch store.
Send me a check in the mail.
It's going to get launched about 10 minutes after we are done recording.
Well,
Guys,
thank you so much for being here, Preston.
Guys, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.